grab your drink. So what I want to do right now, I want to kind of move into my first training portion of this, and I wanted to lead this out. How many of you guys even gone through the one funnel way challenge? Yeah. Okay, those who've gone through it, if you know, I stressed a lot about one simple thing, which was hook, story, offer. I talked a lot about that, and I want to talk about that for the next hour or so because throughout this week you're going to be learning about a lot of different types of funnels, right? About challenge funnels and summit funnels and like all these different things. And some of you guys may get confused. I want you to understand like the core fundamental foundation of what you have to become good at as an entrepreneur is understanding this one concept, which is mastering hook, story, offer. And so I'm going to spend some time going over that hook, story, offer. I gave everybody a handout that came with your, should be on your seats. You guys take notes on and stuff like that. But one of the things it says in there, I think on the very front page, is that if something's not working in your funnel, it's always either your hook, your story, or your offer. Every time. Everyone's like, my funnel's not working, Russell, what should I do? I look at them like, oh, your hook is horrible. That's why nobody's clicking on your ad. Or, hey, your hook's good, people showed up, but your story's boring, that's why no one's buying. Or it's like, you hooked and you told a good story, but man, that offer was horrible. No one would ever give you money for that. And I've learned, as I broke it down consulting to three things, it's always one of these three things. Okay? So I'm going to spend the next hour or so going over this, giving you guys ideas and opening up your mind to becoming better at that. If you become better at that, this framework fits into any funnel. Okay, if I'm selling a book, I got to be good at hook, story, offer. If I'm selling something through the phone, hook, story, offer. If I'm selling something through webinars, hook, story. This is the framework that we all have to become masters at. So I want to lead with that today, and then as everyone else starts training on different funnels and strategies, you just remember, if my funnel's not working, it's because of one of these three things every single time. Okay? If you were to hire me for my insanely high consulting rates, Russell, my funnel's not working, what should I do? I'd just be thanks for the check. It's either your hook or your story or offer. So next time you're man, I wish Russell would look at my funnel, just sit down and be what would Russell say? He would say, it's either your hook, your story, or your offer. Okay? It's always one of those three things every single time. Okay? So with hook, story, offer, it goes hook, story, offer, but I'm going to start with the offer first and then move backwards just because that's kind of the framework how it works, okay? So the offer, excuse me. A lot of you guys have gone through my training with Perfect Webinar or something like that. You see this thing called a stack slide. How many of you guys are familiar with a stack slide? Good. Okay, the stack slide is how we create an offer, okay? And even if you're not doing a webinar, you still create a stack slide. There's no circumstance when I ever sell that I don't use a stack slide. If I was emailing somebody and they were like, hey, what does it cost to hire you as a consultant or hire you to do whatever, I would literally send an email and I'd have a stack slide. I just have 4.1 value, 2 value, I would use this in everything. Okay, so, and I'm going to show you guys some examples today. It doesn't matter if you're selling coaching or supplements or physical products or services, you should always have this. Okay? Now to begin with, I want to talk about one of the founding fathers of our industry. A lot of you guys may not even know him or heard of him. His name is Claude Hopkins. How many of you guys have heard of Mr. Claude Hopkins? All right, all my OGs, all the originals. Okay, this is your marketing history lesson. So Claude Hopkins was the father of modern advertising. And what's interesting is way back then in the early 1900s, what they called, what his job was, he was what they called a scheme man. Okay, he was a scheme man. What the scheme man did is they came into a company and their whole job was to come up with the offer. That was it. The most important part, which is the offer. Okay? Now to show you the value, even in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the value of becoming a scheme man, the person who actually creates the offer, Claude Hopkins back then was paid $52,000 a year in 1907. Okay, now the equivalent of that's $1.39 million in today's dollars. They paid this dude over $1 million a year to come in and be this is what your offer is. Okay? And most of you guys never even think about this. You just kind of go off and do whatever. And I'm excited. Stephen Larson's going to be talking in 2 presentations. He's going to go deep into a whole bunch of really cool offer stuff with you guys. But we understand like this is the value of like the most important part of offer. You have to understand that this is so valuable that back then they paid people that much money to come create offers for them. Okay, so it's worth your time to start figuring these things out. Okay, now I want to kind of talk about what an offer isn't for a minute, because most people in business, I think about like what's the product I'm going to create. Okay, and the biggest problem when you create a product is that when you have a product, it is a commodity, and anybody else can create it, right? And if you have a product and it's a commodity, when you're trying to figure out how to sell it, the only thing you have like as leverage is price, right? train because it's different, right? It wasn't just a product, it's not a marketing event, it's a whole bunch of other stuff. When you bought ClickFunnels, once you guys didn't buy it, it was like, oh, here's software that builds websites. There's tons of software that builds websites, right? We created irresistible offers and bundle them together to make you go crazy to come and buy and come here and do things, right? I spent a ton of time focusing on how to create an offer. And one thing you have to understand, there's two ways to make your product the cheapest in town. The best way to illustrate this. The first way is obvious, right? If you want to be the cheapest product in town, you have to decrease the price. Which again, funnel hackers don't do that. Okay? We should make a t-shirt that says that. Funnel hackers do not decrease prices. Okay? If you decrease the price, you become cheaper than somebody else. The other thing is if you increase the value of what you're offering, then you become cheaper, right? Okay? Because if I sell you something and it's worth $1 million and I'm going to sell it for $1,000, that's cheaper than the person who sells you something for $1,000 that's worth $1,000. Does that make sense? Okay, so I can either decrease the price or I can increase the value to increase the value of the thing. But if you look at this, it's interesting. I had this conversation with my kids the other day. Like, how much money you make is 100% tied to how much value you give. It's 100% correlation. So my kids were asking me, my kids are cute because they're the age where they're trying to start figuring things out. And one of my sons, Bowen, was like, Dad, it doesn't make any sense. This guy over here, he's one of our friends, he's like, he's a doctor. And he's way better than you, but you make way more money than him. How come? And I said, well, you get paid based on how much value you offer. He's like, but Dad, he operates on people. That's way more valuable than what you do. And I smiled. I said, it's definitely more difficult. I can't imagine that. But I said, you don't understand. He's only able to operate on one human being at a time. So he's offering insane amounts of value for one person. So because of that, he gets paid really, really well, but it's finite. It's as big as it can be. I was like, I'm able to offer value to 4,500 people or 76,000 people or 1 million people because I create something of value and I create sell so many more times. And so I said, that's the reason I'm able to make more money than doctors because of how that works. And I just kept explaining this to him. And so I told him, I was like, look, if you want to get a job, you get paid based on how much value you have, right? Okay, so if you get a job at McDonald's and they're paying, what's minimum wage nowadays, $8 an hour, I'm like, that's how much value you're getting. I was like, but if you go and you can create something, you can do something bigger, the value is so much higher and you can get paid more money for that. Okay, and I was trying to explain this to a kid, which is really fun. And so the whole name of this game is you're creating funnels and you're figuring out your story, your offer. You're trying to increase the value. Okay, so the offer increases the value of whatever it is you're trying to sell. So I'm going to give you guys a couple examples of this in the real world, so hopefully it'll make more sense. Okay, so for example, I've been now married for almost 18 years, so I haven't dated I dated my wife, but it's hard for me to remember exactly how it works, but we watch cheesy shows like The Bachelor, Bachelorette. I see my friends dating, my kids are 3 or 4 years away from dating, and it makes me really, really nervous. But as I was thinking about this, I started thinking about, how did I get my wife to want to marry me? How did I get her to want to go on a date with me back in the day? Okay, I want to put this in perspective. My wife is 5.5 years older than me. She's way better looking than me. She has all the things, and I'm like this little dorky kid. Okay, when I moved to Boise, Idaho, I was to put it in perspective. I moved to this little apartment with a whole bunch of other wrestlers. I had a shaved head. I had glasses on. I had no future. I just wanted to wrestle. I was kind of weird. I was socially didn't dare talk to girls. It was all these things, right? And all my other roommates were there, and a couple of them all had a crush on this girl. And she was the older girl, and one of the other apartments was close to us. And so we'd go over to her house and hang out, right? And so I looked at it, and I was watching these guys, and they'd come over, and they'd try to be like, how cool they were. Hey, you want to go on a date? You want to go on a date? And I watched her. She turned tons of bunch of no, I'm not going to go on a date. No, I'm not going to go on a date. No, I'm not going to go on a date. My man, she keeps